Okay, so now we have activated the recording. So good morning to everyone and namaskar to all. Uh, so welcome to this online workshop, uh, which is basically being organized to improve the quality of research projects done by the undergraduate students. And let me also tell you like how we have thought about this. In fact, before COVID, we had done such a program that was offline, and we had done it at Utkal University. But then again, my if I share my recent experience, recently I was discussing with a few teachers now who are working at different colleges, and then uh, I was asking about the quality of the dissertation submitted by the UG students, and the teachers were very much candid to say that, sir, if we know only how to do a good research project, then only we can guide the students. So, and I thought this is quite a genuine thing, and the reason is that a lot of teachers now are just MA. They have recently completed MA, and after that they have not got any research training program. Although at MA program we have introduced in many universities these research projects, but then that training is not that rigorous. Unless you do MPhil or PhD, no, you don't really get rigorous training for the research projects. So we thought that let us do this program, and then we took opinion in the WhatsApp group of Economic Teachers of Odisha, and then we got good response. And so we thought that let us do this online. So thank you very much, all the teachers who have joined with us, and especially thanks because they have expressed their willingness to sacrifice the Sunday with us. Okay, because I know that they all are hard pressed in the colleges, and so they get only one Sunday for their personal life, but then they have agreed to spare this Sunday with us, and for a larger cause, I would say. Uh, so thank you all teachers who have joined with us. And then I would like to also welcome our president uh, of Odisha Economic Association, Professor Kesav Das, who has also kindly agreed. And of course, not agreed as well. He only, gives us suggestions such as to do many such programs. And you might have noticed during his presidency, we have already conducted so many webinars, and we have got resource persons from you can say from other countries also. So thank you, sir. And then I also welcome Mitali ma'am and Himanshu sir, who have also agreed to join with us and be part of this training program, and they will also be involved in the handholding of all the teachers so that we can come up with good dissertations. And again, special thanks to Mishra sir, Professor Uday Shankar Mishra, who is currently working at IIPS, International Institute for Population Sciences. And then I also welcome Professor Minaketan Behra, who is working at JNU, Jawaharlal University. So I think, okay, although I did not introduce Professor Kesav Das, the president of Odisha Economic Association, he's working at Gujarat Institute of Development Research. Sir will be retiring very soon, and he will give full time for Odisha Economic Association. He has already, he's already giving, that the journal is being completely managed by him. And I don't know whether you can imagine as well how much time he gives and the amount of work, time he devotes to the journal is beyond imagination. So that's why I told that after his retirement, he will give full time to the Odisha Economics Association. And okay, I think I should not take, how do you do? No, although I have written in the program that we three will be speaking, but I think I will invite everyone to have quick remarks for 2-3 minutes, and then we can go ahead. So may I invite Professor Kesav Das to speak a few words?
Welcome, everyone. It's a Sunday morning, and I think, as Dr. Amarendra Das already mentioned, that so we do not know whether this Sunday is better spent learning and better spent interacting, and also better spent doing something for the younger sort of generation for whom this program essentially is meant. So despite that losing a Sunday, I think this probably is a good attempt. And as Dr. Amarendra Das mentioned, that we are essentially trying to, not that we are sort of huge experts in the subject. I think it's mostly through an interactive process with teachers, because in fact there is so much to learn from you and the challenges you face. So what we'll be doing essentially through this program is, even if we have like separate sort of sections, like people talking about methods and people talking about how to write a dissertation and all that, but that will be again based on our own sort of limited experience, and I think that will be enriched only when sort of we encounter questions from your side, because the challenge is that there has been a definite decline in the quality of social science research. This has been very sort of widely discussed now, and some of that also as teachers, as we sort of maybe groom the next generation, I think it's a responsibility. So it is in broad context that so we have sort of started this initiative, and hoping that our interactions will be useful not just for both the parties here, that is those who will be training and those who are receiving the training today, but then maybe for younger people who may be sort of better off through this process. So with that, I'm also very happy to sort of mention that we have very good like resource persons. Amarendra Das himself, the long experience in doing both empirical and theoretical research. He has done quite some good work on in the policy arena. In fact, he writes very frequently. We have Professor Mitali Chinara, again with a very long-standing experience, both teaching and research, and of course a lot of training programs that she holds. She is also very closely associated with the policy making, both at the state and the national level. So that makes her a very special resource person for us. Then we have Professor Himanshu Raut, again with a long years of teaching. In fact, when the next name comes mine, but I think I do not have so much of teaching experience. So I'm also looking forward to learning from them. And of course, we have Professor Uday Misra from IIPS Mumbai. Is a very sort of distinguished scholar and has a pretty long experience of teaching both at the national and at the international levels. And I'm also looking forward to learning from him. And then, of course, we have Professor Minakatan Behra from JNU, and he has both teaching experience and done a lot of very interesting research work. I've seen some of his very recent, detailed, field-based research work, which also contributes to policy. I think we are in the midst of good people, and so let's hope this initiative is useful for all of us. And there may be lapses, there may be challenges, there may be issues which we may not settle at this event. But then, as I said, this is essentially an interactive and communicative initiative, so we'll always be in touch. So with that, I so turn to the General Secretary, Dr. Amarendra Das.
Okay, thank you so much, sir, for the inspiring words. And then now over to Mitali, ma'am. Ma'am, please.
So very good morning to everybody who is present in the session. My humble regards to Keshav sir and Uday sir. I'm very happy. First of all, I'm very happy to be here. Second thing, as we say, we are sacrificing a Sunday, but in economics, we know that there is always a trade-off. So this is a trade-off kind of thing. So we are not sacrificing, we are giving up some free time to gain a lot of things. So it's a trade-off always. There is no free lunch. So to be in the midst of good people, to be in the midst of youngs and also people who are more senior, it's always a pleasure. Second thing is that I'd like to mention it here that this is a beginning only. This is a I take it as a beginning of similar such kind of endeavors in future. We want to like I always consider myself as a student who is eager to learn from the people who have not people who are in terms of number in ages who are older than me, but also anyone who knows a little bit more than me. Many people know a lot of more than me, so I'm always eager to learn, to share their experiences, and if there is no better teacher than an experience, so this is just a beginning where we are trying to tell you from our experience. We would like to listen to you from your experience, and those who want to stay connected to us can always do so. Because as we have this, we have in the before this session was organized, we had a talk amongst ourselves, and we discussed that we'll have more specialized depending on your needs, what you want. We can have more specialization to cater to in this will be especially this has been designed as a supply taking into taking economics jargon into account once more. This is a supply side session where we have tried to give you what we think you need, but you are always free to give us your feedback so that we can have special sessions to cater to your needs. So that will be there in the future. We want to keep this relationship going always. So in academia, there is always nowadays a lot of collaborations are resulting in a lot of good work, a lot of good outcomes in not only in terms of research but also in teaching. We want to hold your hands, let you give us whatever is available with us, open up our resources. This is not a period of time where we close our resources. Our resources, academic resources, in fact, grow by sharing. Academic resources are the only resources which increases, enhances as it is shared. So we are eager to share whatever we have in terms of teaching, learning resources, research resources. So this is just an humble beginning. I welcome you all. I can see a lot of names which are very familiar who have passed out of Utkal, but also some of them are not known. But before we technically launch into the session, I would like to request Dr. Amarendra Das to give an overview of how many of them have PhDs, how many of them have MPhils, and how many of them have only postgraduate degrees. That will give us a broad idea. So with these eyes, for the time being, this much for me. Welcome, and I wish a very productive learning experience on this Sunday morning. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Mitali ma'am. Now, Mr. Sir, Professor Uday Shankar Mishra.
Hi, good morning to you all. And I was just thinking that it's a what a wonderful beginning that we are doing with the young people, and I would consider this particular exercise of our as a kind of a mentoring experimentation. I mean, whatever we are trying to do, and what I'm expecting being part of it is basically it's a wonderful opportunity that in fact in my career I have taken up now a new challenge because I came back to my own alma mater and could find that how much change has happened in terms of quality of mentoring and our preoccupation with making ourselves great teachers and all. But I think ourselves as great celebrated academic, I think the celebration lies primarily now in terms of, as Professor Kesav Das in his introduction rightly mentioned, that grooming the next generation to maintain the glamour of similar work that has been continuing in the arena of social sciences. I would just take this opportunity to welcome all the young participants who have eagerly come forward to be a part of this mentoring experimentation exercise that we are undertaking. And I suggest that we will not be that broadly, greatly ambitious in this very initial attempt that we are making. This will be considered as a beginning in which we will learn the requirements. We will be able to feel what are the kind of shortcomings and requirements they have, and at the same time, the presupposed and assumed thing that we deliver, you must take it in the spirit of considering good of it, bad of it, limitation of it. So I'm just looking forward to that with this one day interaction, one day engagement with all of you. We will be able to gain and make a pathway as to how do we take it forward and how do we make it productive in due course. And such an exercise was perhaps, I'm very much thankful to the OEA and its most, energetic secretary that, I actually thank Amarendra particularly personally that, he has dragged me into this, which has really been with me, that I look forward to every week, every month, a similar interaction, because it is very, very energy giving to me, rather I would say, because I often go to the class these days and I say, students are such a source of energy that they really make you think. They really, give you challenging opportunity to innovate. And perhaps with my own limited ability today during the afternoon, I would try the similar thing, and I look forward to a productive one. Have a good Sunday morning. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Sir. Mr. Sir will have the full session in the afternoon. Now, Himanshu Sir.
Good morning to all, respected President of OEA, Secretary, Resource Persons, and my fellow friends, teachers, students. I fully agree with Misra sir that this is the beginning, and this is a mentoring experimentation. We are experimenting how we will succeed or how we will change it, and this exercise today will be mainly on need based. So we want to know what you want, what is your interest actually, and if you are interested, we will be interested to give more. So that is most important, that how much you are accepting, how much you require, how much, what is your need. And another thing is, we are thinking to do something previously, like last time we thought Amarendra was telling, we have attempted to do a common study. But you see, interest or choice with yours. Choice, it should be on basis of choice or interest. But practically, choice, we may not go for the choice. Practically, we have seen even PhD, in MPhil, in MA dissertation, we always tell the students that you choose your topic, your interest. But it boiled down to somehow to the guide, somehow to the mentor. But this should be, I request all of you to choose your topic. Then we'll make some group, we'll give some mentoring, we'll create a mentoring group, who will be your mentor, and group wise you will do what we have discussed. But for the preliminary basis, we can start with health or any other topic like that, and when the things will come, the subject matter will come, we will discuss more. I also welcome everybody to this mentoring workshop, and we expect a great success from this. And when the themes will come, we will discuss about it. Thank you, Amarendra.
Okay. Thank you, Himanshu Sir. Now over to Minakatan, Professor Minakatan Behra from JLU. Yeah, over to you. Please unmute Minakatan. Please unmute.
Good morning to all. So my thanks to Amarendra and Kesav sir. I think it is very, very essential to maybe to organize this type of workshop, because both we as a teacher, also as a students, so we face many problems for a qualitative and quantitative research. So I think I like that Himanshu Bhai is telling that this is not the like the lecture mode. So I think we learn from the teachers who are teaching at this undergraduate level. So actually what they want and which is essential for this research they are facing. So I think the discussions should be more and the participation should be more. Then only we can contribute in a positive spirit for the benefit of the students. My own experience taking class in different parts of this country on these research methods, I find that many things like we teacher do not know many things, certain concept are there, which is very essential to write a research proposal or write a thesis or anything. So maybe I will share at the afternoon my own experience on this. I think it is a good beginning. So we will share. I think we learn also from this type of work. And if you will interested, maybe in future, I think this is will continue maybe step by step on different aspect of how to improve this quality of our research at the all we were talking about your MA dissertations or your MPhil dissertation or PhD thesis. So we'll discuss this. So with this, I think see you. I expect that this workshop will be very useful for future research work. With this word, so see you in this on the second afternoon for this talk. Yeah, namaste, sir. Amarendra, Kesav, sir.
Yes, I think
Somebody,
I think only Mitali madam also spoke. So maybe we should start. I think Amarendra probably has some difficulty.
Sir, Amarendra has lost, I mean, he has lost his connection.
Yeah, I think there is some technical issue, I think.
So let him join, sir. By that time, you just can go ahead.
Yeah, I think we probably sort of start the first session,
Yes, sir.
and that will be by three of you, Professor Himanshu Raut, Professor Mitali Chinara, and Dr. Amarendra Das. So why not, Professor Mitali Chinara, you initiate. So this is the formal beginning now, and I'm sure Amarendra will join in. So Professor Chinara,
Yes,
please.
sir. Sir, before
Um,
Amarendra joined, over to you, sir.
okay.
We were trying to fill in the gaps.
I'm so sorry, Ajay. My laptop internet got disconnected. Okay. Sorry for that. So I think now let us begin the session program. And to start with, like how let me tell all the teachers like how we have actually planned this program. We have thought that okay, in today's discussion we'll be basically telling you the methods like how to make a good dissertation. In the first session, Professor Kesav Das would be speaking about the outline of a dissertation, and then in the afternoon, Professor Uday Shankara Mishra will be basically sharing some data sources, and he will also tell you how to analyze those data, how to make a table, how to read the table, how to interpret the table, and how to write or how to explain that table. And after that, Professor Minakatan Behra will be telling you how to prepare a good poster. And you must think, why poster? I hope you might have seen the call for papers of Odisha Economics Association. We are having the 55th annual conference of Odisha Economics Association at Kalahandi University, Bhavanipatna, and we are looking forward to all of you to to submit your paper and attend the conference physically. It's a beautiful place to be, and we have a very good host there. The vice chancellor himself is taking a lot of interest. and Kalahandi is a beautiful place to also visit. So uh, in that conference, we have thought to have a poster presentation by the undergraduate students. And of course, for Kesav sir and Mithal ma'am and our research persons, I am also telling that we may also add the PG students and PhD students in that poster presentation, because if we are doing research methodology program, I think that can benefit all. But our primary objective was also to have the poster presentation of the undergraduate students, because undergraduate students are already doing dissertation, so they don't get an opportunity. Like we recently had the Odisha Research Conclave, where we observed that the PhD students make poster presentation. So to promote the research among the undergraduate students, we have thought of this program this year, and that will be on 10th February, 11th and 12th. We are have February 11th and 12th, 2023. We will have the 55th annual conference of OEA. But before that, like it's a pre-conference workshop and poster presentation by the undergraduate students. Then we thought that okay, we are looking forward to getting good posters, but then if teachers will not be comfortable, or they will not be aware of this, then that will be a problem. So let us have a capacity building program for the teachers first, so that they become aware of things like how to make a good poster, and then they can guide their students to come up with good posters, so that we can have a good poster exhibition at Kalahandi University, Bhavani Patna. And of course, it's not that only we'll have the poster exhibition. We'll also have a capacity building program where we'll get resource persons who will speak about the research methodology and how to prepare a good dissertation, good poster, and so on. So, primarily, our immediate objective is our 55th annual conference, where we are expecting good posters from all of you. Like basically, it will be from your students, but then you will be their guide. So that is our immediate goal. But then our macro goal is to improve the quality of dissertations at undergraduate level. So in that context, we are organizing this workshop. And let me tell you how we had done it in Utkal University 2 years ago, before COVID came. That year, we thought that all teachers can work on a common topic. And then, basically, that year, we thought that all teachers can work on National Health Mission. We had chosen just one of the SDG indicators, and that was health, basically maternal child health. And we thought that if all the college teachers work on the common topic, the advantage will be that we will provide them literature. So college teachers struggle to get good literature, but we have access to different databases. So we can download journal articles and we can share with you, so that you can do the review of literature easily. Second, we can also share the secondary data with all of you. That can also be common for everyone, and that also you can analyze. You can also show you the template, how to make tables and the templates, and how to interpret those tables. Then, so that will be common component. Review of literature and the macro data analysis will be common for all dissertations. But then, what will be the difference in all dissertations? There has to be difference component, and that will be the students will be collecting the data from their own village, or a village no neighboring to the college. And what kind of data they can collect? In case of maternal and child health, Anganwadi workers and ASA workers maintain a very good register. They maintain the profile of all the pregnant women and the children, newborn babies, and they like maintain the data like how many children are born, who actually got vaccine, who where actually how many institutional deliveries we had, who is getting financial benefits, and everything. Similar nutritional interventions, everything is maintained by the Anganwadi workers. So now the students can go to the Anganwadi worker and collect this data, and the teachers can guide them how to prepare a good table from this data. So that will be the difference in everybody's dissertation. So this is how the students can submit their dissertation, and then suppose we assume that in all 30 districts we have colleges, teachers, and then they will prepare a report, like say health status report of say Khordha district. In all 30 districts, they can prepare a report, and then we can assume that okay, this is the health status report of that particular district. And then in Odisha Economic Association, we may try to compile the district reports and come up with the state report. So health status report of Odisha. Okay, and that's what we had planned in 2019. Okay, but then COVID came and then we could not materialize this. But then genuine concerns have been raised by my colleagues that see why everybody will show interest in doing research in health economics. People may have different interest, and then Odisha has also different research issues that also can be taken up, and that's a very much valid point. I don't dispute with this, but then I also told you like why I thought of a common topic. If you do work on a common topic, then we can provide the literature and data, and then you can do handholding of interpreting things, and then the issues will change. Suppose this year we work on health issue, next year we can work on education, maybe next year on migration, anything. Like every year we change the topic and work on a common topic. But again, I am not going to say that this is the final decision. This is only suggestion. You will actually, in fact, give your opinion, because in this session, I think after I speak, Mithal Ma'am and Himanshu speak, I will invite actually some of our college teachers to share their own experiences and their expectations. That will be very much important for us. So that's what we have actually thought. Okay, and suppose we again think that no, there are different, the different opinion, and then different teachers who want to work on different topics. I think that is also perfectly fine. In that case, we will try to find out, say, the mentors. Like suppose there are five broad areas, and then in each area we will have a mentor who will be basically supporting the teachers. Suppose you want literature, then the mentor will provide you with the literature. Similarly, data concerns you can ask, and similarly analysis, interpretation, everything, like how to make a table, how to interpret the table, how to read that table. So everything will be facilitated by the mentor. But again, that depends on all you actually. If you show interest, we are again going to go extra miles. Okay, so and then okay, so that will be our plan. So what we have thought that after this program, I will also share with you at the end of the day, like your area of interest. Okay? And then we'll try to find out the mentors who will be guiding you. And then on probably next Sunday or some other Sunday, you can have one-to-one discussion. Suppose somebody is willing to work on health, then you will have a few mentors. Then suppose somebody is willing to work on industry, there will be a few mentors. If somebody is willing to work on migration, there will be some mentor. So you will have one-to-one discussion with them on again online platform, and then you can carry forward. Again, I will urge all of you to send your students to Bhavan Patna with a poster, so that they get exposure. And if you say, if you can change the life of one student from your college, that will be very big thing. So now that we have say about 60 people who are joining today with us. Now suppose you send 60 students to Bhavan Patna, that will be a huge difference. So you can just focus on you will generally do the hand holding of all students, but suppose you choose that this is the best student who is capable, okay, and let him go there, or two students you send them to Bhavan Patna, they get exposure there, they will get rigorous training also there, because one day full day we'll have WhatsApp where we'll invite good resource persons to basically speak on how to do all the research work, so they can get full benefit. And I think okay, so that's what we have planned. And I think now with this I will stop. This is how actually we have planned. And for today also I have already told you, like first Keshav sir will, after this session Keshav sir will talk about the outline of the dissertation, and how to do review of literature, how to analyze the data, how to present the data, and all things. Then Mr. Sir will be doing the data analysis parts, showing you the sources of data, and Minakatan Sir will be showing you how to make a good poster. So with this, I think I will stop now. Over to Mithal ma'am. Yes, Mithal ma'am.
So thank you, Amarendra sir. I just want to can we take a few feedbacks before we can really launch onto the programs? Can we take the feedbacks like how the dissertations or projects are done now? Can we take? Can I invite some people to volunteer and tell you that you all of you have already worked in at the plus three level, graduation level, where the CBCA syllabus has been introduced for quite some time. I mean, not maybe the students have already started passing out, and projects they have done projects, and you people, some of you must have or might have guided some projects. Number one, and secondly, even if you are not guided or you have not actually been a mentor to a student, you must have seen how the projects are being done. It has been done. So can I take what I have heard from my or my experience or my to my knowledge? The feedback that we get is not so good. So can we request some of you to volunteer and tell us how these are actually done? What is your assessment of the quality of these projects? One or two volunteers, please pick up, unmute yourself and tell us before we can go ahead. Anyone who has anyone, you can raise your hand and Nagarendra sir will we can call out.
In fact, they can unmute themselves
Yes,
and
yes,
speak.
yes. Please, please. Some of you, one or two is sufficient. If I ask you, I can see Sibo is there. I'm calling him by name because I
Yes,
have Sibo. Why don't you tell me?
yes, ma'am, ma'am, namaskar,
No.
sir, namaskar. In undergraduate level, madam, in research work, normally we have to guide many number of students, like 15, 20 number of students, and first of all, we have to devote more times to them. But one thing is that first thing is technical issue. They don't have that gadget like laptops to analyze. So it is being difficult for the empirical research. Theoretically, in the works, paper works, and in the review of literature, they have just printed downloaded the work, and they will study and they go for the theoretical research. But in case of empirical research and analysis of that data, they are facing difficulties. I have done this work previous years with two three students, but many students they could not do that because due to that kind of problems. So that is one point. And second is first of all, they could not. I have given them some kind of articles to study, good articles, but they are in doubt, or they have they are in doubt, like they could not understand that properly. So we are discussing about that. They are and also in case of a data, in case of primary data, they prefer due to short span of time, that the last semester is all about 3 to 4 months. In that period of time, collecting data and entering the data, analyzing the data, it is being time taking. So it is becoming difficult for them for that work. They preferring for the secondary data or any kind of articles which have already published, that they are bringing data from that sources and analyzing. So these kind of difficulties we are facing.
Okay,
Uh,
okay.
in
So can I ask someone else? So that means your students are doing some work.
Some work, yes.
Some work. Okay. But to my knowledge, analyzing secondary data is much more difficult than analyzing primary data. Just yes. Who is this
Yes.
AAA? Can you have posted a comment? 2 months. Yes, we know that the sixth semester. No, no. Don't take into account the COVID period. If you normally sixth semester is it is a short semester. Last semester is a short semester. So the students must be allotted beforehand, and the dissertation work can start from the previous semester. That's possible. You know these are the problems. You can preempt it and start earlier. 2 months, sixth semester
Yes.
is a COVID phenomenon, not normal phenomenon. Sixth semester is around 3 to 4 months, and sixth semester you don't have many papers also. How many honors papers are there? They don't have any elective or things like that. How many honors papers are there?
Three papers, ma'am. Three papers,
Okay.
theoretical papers, and one project paper. Four papers.
Okay. So, yes, anyone else can say something like, see a lot of familiar names, but please, someone can unmute and tell us how it is done. What are you doing actually? Yes, someone trying to
Good
say.
morning, everybody. I am Shraddhanjali from Maharshi College of Natural Law, Bhubaneswar. Now,
मैडम
what Mitali ma'am was telling,
मैडम
hello,
वीडियो बेटर है
ah,
Video on kara.
मैंने video on
Oh
କରିବିନି.
no, sir.
ओके
How? Now, actually, the problem is with the undergraduate student, what we are facing. That is, for number one, that the time constant. The time constant in the sense, the students they get hardly 3 months for the final semester, because the university have the rule that those who have secured more than 6 CGPA in the last semester, the for which the result is out, that is not mentioned which semester. Sometimes it is third semester, sometimes it is fourth semester. So the students, they are not aware, they do not know that whether they are going to do project or they are going to do the coursework. So if after the publication of the result, they are eligible. Some students they are eligible, some students they are also not eligible. So in that case, the time constant is there. So within 2 to 3 months time, they have to go through the others course paper also, and also the project. So collecting primary data, last year we were insisting students to collect primary data, and what I found was that all of those were completely manipulated. So actually that is not that is not done by the students. That is completely manipulated data, and the analysis part is also very miserable. So that is my point. So how to improve them?
Thank you, Shraddhanjali madam. Anyone would like to say? So see this time constant. I would say that they they're eligible for project work if they keep a minimum of 60%. That's the condition is there, I know. But if you can we not allot them the project work from the sixth semester onwards, so they can start a little bit, so that they can do if they want. Like you cannot you cannot you can drag a horse to water, but you cannot make it drink like that. So if you can start a bit of project work from the fifth semester onwards, like at the postgraduate level also we have a dissertation in the fourth semester. So what we do is that we allot them from the first semester itself, so that they know that who is their mentor, and we insist that they start their work from the third semester itself, though the project is in the fourth semester, but work starts in the third semester. If we, that can, I'm just suggesting. I know the real constraints at the grassroots can be handled by you people. So you have to design a method. Like we have what we have
No,
designed, yes. So what we have designed
no.
in Utkal is that they have a dissertation. Now dissertation is there in the fourth semester. For us, like it's the sixth semester is a final semester. For us, fourth semester is a final semester, which is a short semester. So knowing that, and they have also other theoretical papers which they have to study for and sit for the exam. So
Mm,
what we do is that we start the dissertation work in the third semester itself, so that they can at least it is possible. Some manipulation, some घर बैठ के data collection, वो तो I mean this is bound to happen. So, but if like Amarendra sir said, and we should not be too ambitious. But if one good dissertation can be turned out, that will be
At least,
that
at
will be
least.
that will be our value addition. If you can like if they have some dissertation experience and idea in the graduation level itself, that will prompt them. I mean, they can do better at the postgraduate level.
No,
That yes.
no, one thing
Mm.
is that whether actually in the undergraduate level, the students are also not aware whether they will pursue their post graduation or they will go do some banking and other job. So
Right.
mostly
So
they
that's
are
the
not
same thing.
aware. So
See,
in the PG level, that is there. That PG level means they are research oriented or something like that. But under undergraduate level, they are not actually they are not aware about their future. So that's the problem.
so then even I would
So
like
many students are telling that no, we will not do PG, we will do banking course and other things. So that's why so that is the main problem we are facing. Very much problem for pursuing them to do project.
no, the same thing is there. Don't think that our life is better than yours. Because at post-graduation level also, we do not know how many of them are pursuing it seriously. Many people get admitted here, get a hostel accommodation, go to the coaching classes for banking and do not attend classes, and they expect to pass just like that, and they do not know what to do. So, like we are also like some of our teachers used to say that it's a waiting hall. So everywhere in India, the problem is there. They do not know what they're going to, what career options they're going to go for. So that problem is always there. But as I said, one or two students per batch, per college, one or two students per batch, per college is an incremental change, which is going to make a lot of difference. That's my point. One or two students. We're
Okay,
not
okay,
talking about 32 students or 48 students who will do a
okay,
quality.
okay, okay.
If we go on saying it, so that is what I would like to say, that if you can start it in the fifth semester, practical process, fifth semester, start give like someone Susanto has said that review of literature is so difficult for to understand the research article. So yes, I know that review at post graduation and at MPhil level also is not easy. I mean, we see that they're not able to understand. So that is always there. These challenges are always there. But the challenges, as I said, everyone is, we're not expecting to start it at a, see, when the project, one thing I would like to say here, when CBCS syllabus, the project was introduced, I know this project is a concept which is being which is there in the schools, which is there. Now, what is the basic philosophy behind project? The basic philosophy behind project is to have a connect to the grassroots. Take it to the the basics instead of keeping it to the books and confining it to the classrooms. So, project introduction of a project should kind of generate the interest in the students for interest in the subject within the students. So as I come to here, I have taught in undergraduate colleges for 20 years. Now that I have been here in the university from the beginning, so 20 years I have seen different colleges. I have seen the students. I have interacted with them. The thing is that I come to hear that, especially after the introduction of the CBCS syllabus, there is a decline in interest among the students in opting for economics as an honor subject because they think that it's difficult. And one of the ways, so but I would say that economics is one of the continuous. I have held a view, and I still hold the view that economics is one of the most important and most interesting subjects that one can look at. And the interest in the subject at the national level is growing. So, what's the problem that the interest in the subject at the state level, at the regional level, is not keeping at pace? So, that is the problem. And if you say that the CBCS syllabus is too tough, well, there is no, you don't have an option. Like they said that liberalization, why did you bring it on? It will kill the our industry. But that was not like that was not an option. This is also not an option. So something which is not an option, we should not think why did we accept it. So this is a must. So this syllabus revision to keep up with the UGC, the UGC mandate, we had to accept it to say that this is not good, or this is because of the tough CBCS syllabus people are losing interest. That is not done. That is not a solution. So one of the ways that we can generate interest among the students is through this project. So small you are all, as Manendra sir has told, from different undergraduate colleges spread over across the length and breadth of the state, where you are in touch with the students who come from the rural areas. So in the rural areas, any typical problem, you can talk about the marketing of the agricultural produce, the problem they face with the mandis, the problem they face with accessing the loan, the problem they face with, let's say, in accessing the hospitals, healthcare services which are provided. Any one of these problems, a small issue of the local area. This is my suggestion, but I'm not being too ambitious that we'll have a wealth report. That is good enough, and I have spoken to discuss with Amarendra sir in the morning that after we kind of improve the quality of projects to a level, then of course we can think that is a very ambitious project and a good one. But for the time being, if you can interest the student, generate interest among the students about the small problems they face at their village level, so that they can take any one of those small issues and make a kind of, make a small survey. Secondary data is good enough, but make a small survey, let's say 40-50 people, and make a small tabular analysis. Colleges have computers these days, or almost all colleges. There are computer labs. So infrastructure, having access to literature, having access to resources, I don't think, if you don't want to do a thing, इसके लिए हजारे बहाने हो गए. So you can have 1,000. I'm not saying that everyone can do, but as they said, 1 or 2 students per college per year is a huge value addition. Think of, now motivate your students to go for a postgraduate degree, wherever they get it. So that if they do a good project, that will enhance their possibility of getting into a good postgraduate degree, doing a good postgraduate degree, and then, dropping out. I say that people who are doing a postgraduate degree to get into banking, that is a sheer wastage of resources. But I'm not saying that everyone should come into teaching, everyone should come into research, but you should explore your potential. Do your best, give your best, then leave it to and take it there, then you take your choice. So I would say that a small project, a good project at the college level is difficult, I agree, but not impossible. So please try to do it. Any kind of handholding. Rest of all, we can also always discuss. We can always have more need-based kind of approach, and then we can take it forward. Thank you so much.
Naina was willing to say something. Naina.
Yes, sir.
Yeah. So,
So, namaste. Hello, namaste. Good morning, everyone. I am really happy to be a part of this program today. Actually, I have only 5 students with me right in the final year. This year, I got 10 students. Ma'am was saying that economics is a very tough subject. They are thinking that's
No,
why
I
only
didn't
10
say it's a
students.
tough subject. I said it's an interesting subject. I never said it's tough.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. That's why this time I got 10 students because the final year and second year students are telling them that yes, economics is really interesting, and that's why they are motivated. They are being motivated. They have taken admission. So I have also tried to teach statistics for economics and research methodology in the third semester and fourth semester respectively, from the research perspective only. So I have tried to teach at my best and motivated them to do the application part of this in the project. So they are also interested. So from my side, we have 32 computers in our computer lab. So from my side, it is okay for me, and my students are also interested and motivated. So I can do this work, whatever will be suggested by you, all of you. So it is, I think we should motivate the students to take over this project and to do their best to motivate them and to bring out from their comfort zone. It is our duty as a teacher, I think, what I have been taught by you. So thank you, ma'am. Thank you, sir.
Wonderful. See, she has there is a computer lab. She is willing to go. See that extra mile one has to go. That extra mile. So Anita Mahapatra says that students think that it is the assignment to the teachers. So, like I said, don't try to I mean, don't think big. Every incremental change is an addition. Niharika wants to say something. Please, Niharika. Niharika, this one has raised a hand.
Namaskar, madam.
Ah.
This is Niharika from Women's College, Raigada. Madam, from my 3-year experience, actually, the condition is very much pathetic here because, as you know, it is a very much tribal district and there is not a single problem we are facing. We are facing the problem of students, and here we are the teachers as well as we are the students who are doing the digitations.
Video on, if possible.
Oh, no, sir.
Okay, fine.
But still, here coming to the academic part, here the academics is zero, and but still with all such kind of constraints, we are struggling a lot, and we are hoping for the best that we can do any kind of change that we can do. But we are facing a lot of challenges. Here, the students they are not coming to the classes and they are not understanding anything. We are starting from A, B, C, D to we don't know what we are teaching here. So here we are the students as well as the teachers. So that's all, madam.
Okay. Mittal ma'am, let me just speak a few words if you allow me. Okay. See, many teachers are telling that students lack motivation, like Anita has also shared in the group that when it comes to project, they feel what is this? Why we should do this? Like, and also Radhanjal ma'am was also telling that some students think that we are not going to be part of academic world, so why to do such things? Let me tell you that the objective behind keeping a dissertation is not that every student will get into academics. This help students, but this will help them in developing the analytical skill and the writing skill. Now, suppose somebody gets into a banking job. In bank, suppose they get a lot of data and how to analyze the thing, like whether the banking, whether they are giving loan, like how are they distributing their loans in different sectors? Like you have private sector lending and other sectors, whether the loans are distributed properly or not. Then they can analyze, say, a risk profile of their loans, okay, their portfolios. So they can do a lot of things. So suppose you are getting into corporate sector, then also you are analyzing something, you are writing something. So this will help them in developing the analytical ability and writing ability, and then also presenting ability. So it has it is not that it is confined only to academics. This will be helpful for everyone. Now coming to like the motivation part, to break the ice, you can take the students to do a field survey. Okay. Now why I am saying this? Now, suppose all of a sudden you give them some secondary data, they will not know as what is the purpose, why, how this is going to help them. I don't know actually. I know many of you are there. When I was in Utkal University, I have taken 2 batches of students to field, and in Niger also I continue to do that. Why? See, first of all, students think that this is a fun, picnic. Okay, we are going to field, we'll have some fun there, we'll have good food, but that is fine. But then along with that, they also get the skill how to do a survey, how to collect some data, how to observe the social phenomena. And once they come back from the field, you tell them to write a story of, basically to prepare a report of the field survey. What is their general observation? Then second part will be like you now tell them the data that is collected from a small questionnaire. Okay? You say make one-page questionnaire and give them a few important questions, and then ask them to analyze those things. And now you may say that okay, many of them don't have laptop. Then in that case, you select the students who have laptop, make them put them in different groups, or you sit with them in the computer center of your college and you teach them how to enter the data in Excel, how to make a frequency table, how to make a bar diagram or say pie chart, and then you try to help them how to interpret. So initially you can do small things. You don't teach them how to do a regression analysis in undergraduate dissertation. Show them how to just prepare a graph, how to make a table, how to make a cross tabulation, frequency table, and interpret that, and make a story of the village. So then students will understand, oh, so this is what we learn, and you tell them immediately that what did we learn from this exercise. Then I think students will definitely find it interesting. See, unless you make your hands dirty, the students will not show their interest. You have to also, I understand, as a teacher, you have to really go extra miles. When you know, and in rural areas, when the resources are limited, time is limited, and there are so many other constraints. You have to really think. And again, having said all these things, I know that you can't really motivate 100% students, but if you can motivate at least half of your students to make a good decision, that's a big achievement. So let us hear from Vandana. Yes, Vandana, over to you.
Sir, namaskar. Actually, in our course in semester 6,
Vandana Pathak, yeah.
I'm audible?
Yes, please go ahead. Please go ahead. Yes.
In our course in semester 6, we have the project paper, but also other alternative like international economics and agriculture economics is also there. So students, those are good students, they want to study international economics, and they say that it will help in our PG course. So that is why, though they are also interested in project work, they are switching over to international economics particularly. So that is the problem. Not exactly problem. They select paper rather than project. That was in our common syllabus, and we can.
So in that case, madam, I think see, I am part of board of studies of a few colleges.
Yes,
this can be in the board of studies, right? So if
yes.
you know that you should promote the students making a good dissertation. To me, students should study international trade as well as they should do a dissertation. So
we have done that, and some of the yes, sir. Some of the students also have taken project work last year. But I want to also know that can it be separated? That means they actually want to study international economics. They want to know about it. They say that for PG entrance it will be important. That is why for them. Any suggestion can be made from your side?
In the PG, actually, in the PG entrance, we said, I think questions come from the core papers, not from a light paper. Not from a light paper.
Okay.
Usually, take a look at the syllabus, Mandana madam. So, I mean, the questions which are asked, I think generally, when we decide, we always make it a point that the common papers, courses should come from the common papers. Because we have 14 core papers. We have 14. There is not a dearth of papers. So, if you can impress upon them that as such they are going to study international economics at the postgraduate level. So those who want to, if they are going to plan for post-graduation, they're not going to miss out on international economics if they take a project. That can be said.
Okay, we have done that. Okay, that is fine. Thank you, madam. Thank you, sir.
Okay, I think now we should invite Himanshu sir. Sir, we have eaten some of your time. Please forgive us. Now, okay. So please, yeah.
Okay. So I think this past session is about the objective and broad outline of this today workshop. Let me tell the mission of this this today workshop is to improve the quality of the project, quality of the students' ability to write this project. This is our main focus. For that, the objective of the seminar objective is we are experimenting. We are experimenting first time, then we'll proceed on our follow-up action, and we know your your interest, how much you are interested, how much, what is your need. That is the exploration today. The main thing is that. Of course, we will tell something about the content part, but this is our main objective, and our objective is to follow up it. We will see how many are in the last moment, means the next workshop, then hand holding. We want to continue it with some of the teachers. How we'll improve it. Like we are telling, like Amaradra told, if every year you change one life, one student's life, that is, I think, success of your teaching of that year. So target for 5, get a success of 1, 20% success also very high. But ours also, our objective of this workshop is, we are now 60. How many year they are, how much in the next workshop, how many are going to the advanced stage? That is also, if 20 will come, we'll be very happy also. If our workshop, next workshop, and how they are improving their own research and also contributing the progress or the advancement of the students' research. That is our main target in the long run. Next, to come to my second point, that few lines about this research. Always we are telling, and in the next 3 sessions you will get the main content. My point is, research, something, you get something interesting, new thing. And how do you get the new things? You have to know the old thing, and in the old thing, the new thing is not there. You didn't find it. You will get a new thing. So to get a new thing, you should know the old. So review of literature, the existing body of literature, you have to get it. Reasonable standard of knowledge on the past literature you should have. Then your interest may be manipulated. You are interested in one topic, after reading you may get more interest, so you should increase your interest. And just now I posted how many, you please mention your broad area of interest. Nobody writing. That means you are not aware of what is your broad area of interest. That interest is not coming from you. I just posted to know how many you are writing your broad area of interest. So I don't know why you are so much a passive. You should come up with your interest area. Then we can find out different people to mentor you. So you should show your interest. Otherwise, how much time will drag to you? You see, even the mother is not giving the milk if the child is not crying. So you have to cry. You have to cry. You have to tell your interest. You have to tell your comments. Tell challenges. I will come to the challenge. Whatever you have mentioned, the challenges. So my first point is, choose your interest area. Choose a challenge from the society. Choose a challenge from yourself. What challenges you are facing in your education, in your life, or in your village, or in your area, or in your college. Choose one challenge which will have some solution. Use or take some students with you and solve that. And how to solve? To solve it, find out if there is a solution. Otherwise, you design a method, get some data, design it, get a solution. That is exactly the thing in project we are doing. So I think about this, you will get the insight by Professor Kesav Das, then followed by Professor Misra, then Professor Behera. If time permits, we will also participate in that. So I'm not going inside the in the content part. My third point is some comments on the Shraddhanjali madam was telling about time constraint. Already Mitali madam told how we are doing, even we are starting from the first semester, even though the project is there in the 4th semester. That is one strategy. The second strategy is, madam teaches us, given the resources, we have to utilize, we have to get our satisfaction. Let us say it is 2 months even, or let us say 3 months, let us say 4 months, whatever time is there, Please make a plan for that time. With that time, whatever possible you can do. We are not telling you prepare a project of a standard of in a very good journal. Suppose I am having 2 months. Let us say 1 week for sensitization, another 15 days for review of literature, 1 week for a data collection. Even if OS, they have also 3 papers. So keep that paper also 3 paper. Whatever time is available, from that time also we can plan it. So one strategy is start it from 4th semester or 3rd semester. Second strategy is given the time, please utilize that time with timetable and follow up the students. Give a target, daily target or weekly target. Weekly target, follow up them. We know they are not interested what Niharika was telling. Niharika, you see, don't think challenge in university or in Niger. We have also challenges. So how you are tackling the challenges, that is matter. Okay, your challenge degrees may be high, our challenge degree may be low. So according to that, we have to get a solution. If we will taking this challenge and you will tell no, we cannot proceed. No, that cannot be. I know you can do that. Even if you change what we are discussing, one child, one teacher, just you do yourself, other teacher will see and follow, somebody will follow you, not all, but somebody will follow you, your idea also. So you do whatever you can do. And another thing about Sadhanjali madam was telling about the project, they are not interested. Already Amarendra sir given the example of bank and what is the life, and also Mitali madam told. I also add one thing, madam, this project, the objective of the project is not to get mark only. The objective is project to get a solution of a challenge in their own life, whatever they are facing also. Suppose a student facing his own life problem, let us take that problem also and get a solution to that. So project, the objective of the project, it is lifelong. It is not only in economics, not only in social, not only in economic, all work of life we are using how to get a solution of a challenge every time. So we should tell to the student, see, this is a project not for your marks only. This will change your life. If you will know some fundamental thing, how to get a solution of a challenge, how to get a solution of a problem, how can get a solution of issue, then you just give a path to them. Of course, they will get fun doing the things if you will, many what Amarendra was telling, to take the students to the field. One day you take, he is experiencing, we are also experiencing. So please do that way. You should create interest among them. No, it is not a burden. Don't think it is a burden. So, so that is the point. And my last point is, thank you, friends. You have given a lot of areas after the posting. So we'll look into the areas and we'll find out some solution about it. And of course, in the last, we will share a Google form to know your interest and make the groups. So, and my last word also, same thing I'm telling, we are experimenting it, we will follow up. Association will take it a challenge. Last moment, how much, suppose this year you are having one teacher having one paper, next year how many papers you are giving? This year you are changing one life, one project, next year how many more projects you are doing, in number and also in quality. So we'll follow up it. We are not leaving you. If you will show 1% interest, we will show 2% interest. With these words, I think I stop here and over to Amarendra. Amarendra, unmute करो. I think Amarendra
connection problem.
Am I audible now?
Yes.
No,
Yes.
audible.
Oops.
Yes,
Okay,
yes,
am I audible
yes,
now?
you're audible.
Okay. Sorry, again, internet disruption is happening. So, thank you, Mithal ma'am, and thank you, Himanshu sir, for no sharing your valuable thoughts with our participants. So, I think we have 7 minutes to go for the second session. So, I think we have now understood the importance and how we can break the ice. Again, I understand that many students will not have their laptop and they will not know how to analyze the things. So in that case, you'll have to sit with them, and then only you can do these things. Otherwise, and I don't know actually whether all colleges have computer center, or at least a few computers where students can come and analyze the data. So, but let us begin somewhere. Either you give your own laptop to the students, they'll do analysis, or you form group, and so that they can help each other, and that's how we can go ahead. Okay, I think let me stop here. Sir, can I now invite Professor Keshav Das to proceed with his session? Keshav sir, is it okay if you start now?
Yes, it's okay. It's okay.
Okay.
So let me share the presentation. I hope एक second. Just a moment. Should go for the shadow entire screen, isn't it?
Go to present now. There is no an icon.
Yeah, present, and there are three options. Entire screen, window.
Yeah.
Sorry?
Share entire screen. Better will be share entire screen.
Yeah. But not seen.
Have you opened your PPT?
Yes, this is there. But that screen option is not seen. I don't know what happened. Just a second. Let me.
Sir, kindly email it to Amarendra. He will show it on his computer.
Yeah, I think I'll probably do that. I just.
No, you can try, sir. You try once more. Otherwise,
Yeah, I'm
Secretary
just.
must be optimally exploited.
No, I'm sort of like that sharing option that.
Sir, ଆପଣ ପଠେଇ ଦିଅନ୍ତୁ ଅମରେନ୍ଦ୍ର ପଠେଇ ଦିଅନ୍ତୁ. He will flash it up, sir.
Okay, maybe I'll do that. I think I'll let me do that.
Sir, bottom of the screen there gote zero mark bhaliya gote there is an arrow mark. That is the.
No. That I know. That I have done, but.
Sir, both internet broadband connectivity ଟିକେ low ହେଇଥିଲେ sir se sharing ta हुएନି sir.
Okay, that may be. Just a second. Let me change my.
yeah, that is fine. No problem. We have some time, so you can experiment.
Sorry about the whole thing. I'll just send it to Amarendra in any case.
Okay.
Just a moment. Yes. Uh, Amanandra, did you get it? I just sent to you.
Okay, okay. Let me just check.
I'm so sorry. I think there's some, maybe I think the internet is an issue, I think, yes. Because
Yeah.
normally,
Can you send it to my Gmail or Odisha OEA?
no, Gmail.
Well, okay.
Share screen. That option is not working somehow. Let me change. Okay, I think maybe let me start speaking, I guess.
Yes, sir. Yes.
Okay. So I'm so sorry about this technical part. I don't know why it didn't share. Thank you so very much. I think it was very interesting also to listen to many teachers, young teachers. I think some of the very genuine concerns they expressed in terms of like whether everyone wants to be or should be a kind of a researcher or a social scientist. Um, so maybe Amanandra, if you can make it full screen. Yeah. Thank you so very much. I'm so sorry to bother you. So of course, there are many unknowns in life. You see, there are many uncertainties. So no one is very sure that this is exactly the career option that one will have. So life is full of surprises, uncertainties. But even then, within that, and that is true for everyone. So it is not just those who are studying economics at the graduate level in Odisha. I think this is a kind of a universal challenge for all of us. I think one sort of idea of this particular event that we are organizing today relates to sort of like maybe thinking. I think what Amarendra was hinting at, like irrespective of the profession you choose, there are certain basic sort of requirements, like basic sort of skills that one needs to have. Whether sort of like thinking logically, for instance. So irrespective of your profession, thinking logically or sort of making a presentation which is sort of comprehensive, and also developing an ability to listen to others, to appreciate others' so alternative views, sort of like how to look at information, whether they are sort of like empirical, sort of like data based, or those are sort of like sort of coming from like what we may call as very sort of seriously qualitative sources. I think all these sort of like contribute to a kind of a better thinking process. And whether you are going to be a social science researcher, and of course that is fraught with a lot of difficulties. But I think we are hoping that so it might generate some interest in some sort of young scholars to maybe to choose to be a researcher or a good teacher in future. So with that, so mine is a little, let me be honest in the beginning. So my presentation will be, I'm not very sure how sort of well ordered is that, but I'm sort of trying to also like keep aside a lot of very interesting details, which I think Professor Misra, Uday Misra will be presenting, and so like I'm also looking forward to listening to him in terms of this whole question of information, sort of how to use that. And so what I'll do, I'll sort of give you some kind of a brief outline about how to go about a kind of a dissertation, or rather a shorter project, as I am told that that's probably what is expected very often from the undergraduate and maybe postgraduate students. So, let's sort of begin by appreciating that there has been a huge concern in India regarding the quality of social science research. There have been a number of sort of papers which, in fact, came in EPW at least on 2 rounds in the early 1990s, talking about there is a sort of fall in the quality of social science research. And then there was a major sort of project which was taken up by the ICSSR, the Indian Council of Social Science Research, with the IDRC, International Development Research Center, sort of coming up with a kind of, in which a large number of institutions and individual scholars, very senior scholars, in fact, were engaged, and sort of they came to some kind of a conclusion saying that maybe our citations or citations of our research are not very impressive. And this could be for a variety of reasons. Of course, as some of you did mention, that there is one question is availability of time with the concerned researcher, but then there are also other issues of, in terms of certain kind of supply side issues. For instance, the investment that is needed for sort of building up capacities at the institute level, whether to go for a good library, to have fairly high-speed internet access to all. So there are several such issues were there, and also access to a variety of literature and data sources, which are often very heavily priced. So all that might, and also the facility with the language itself, the kind of a language in which we are generally supposed to be writing our research. So there is a huge concern regarding the Indian social science research, which probably has slightly improved in recent times in terms of its citations. But I think the social science research in general has been in a crisis. Next, please, Amarendra. So this is not the audience where I need to tell that why, what is the purport, or sort of the basis of doing social science research. And there are several views, like some sort of think that it is essentially to describe sort of like a kind of certain phenomenon, social or socio-economic phenomenon, or to explain, predict, and sort of prescribe, if you like, in terms of certain kinds of policy suggestions, or certain kinds of new norms or new institutions that might be coming up. So these are sort of like a variety of purposes, and then some others sort of would argue that there may be more like the purpose is simply to generate new knowledge, and it is not necessarily that you solve the problem. In fact, it's probably a contribution to the society in terms of the previous one, please. Yeah. And it might also aid advocacy of the, let's say, the civil society organizations, and also variety of individuals, institutions who might be contributing. The other sort of point, this is more of this is a point made by Amartya Sen. So talking about like the whole idea is to get at the truth, and speaking the truth to power. So essentially, suggestions are being made that while you generate knowledge, while you analyze socio-economic phenomena in the sort of society that you live in, we must also make objective assessments, and also make sort of present our views in a manner which may be of some use to the society at large. Next, please. And so there is this the concern, and I'm sort of basically sort of hinting on this, because this actually leads to part of what you or some of you were in fact hinting at. So that this whole question of relevance of research, why must we get into this? And and many scholars have sort of pointed out, so the research has become like a more of a cloning activity. It's kind of essentially repetitive. Like, for instance, sort of you you pick up a small issue in an area, let's say sort of how the let's say Mahatma Gandhi National Rural Employment Guarantee Scheme works in a particular district, and sort of without like getting into details of it, or without sort of getting the critical sort of observations that you have made. So for me, the choice of a subject, or like studies on microfinance, for instance. So very often sort of we, without sort of being critical of the questions that we are bothered about, probably we only sort of shift the geographical places, and we think somehow a research has to be done, and so that becomes a wastage of research. And there have been several people who have been sort of commenting that whether our work anyone is actually reading, whether it is of any value, and then the other concern is obviously about whether the researchers themselves, or amongst themselves, or amongst, let's say, the peer group, including the younger and the older ones, the teacher and the students themselves, the teachers themselves, whether so there are sort of opportunities where they interact, so that they might sort of refine, improve upon the work that they have been working on. And then, of course, the question about the policy relevance. In fact, several people, particularly those who are not from, let's say, social science background, very often, in fact, I have been asked by many, many elderly people who are from very different background. Let's say someone, a doctor, for instance, once asked me that sort of who cares for your research, because as a doctor, let's say suppose I'm an ENT specialist, and sort of I treat a patient having a problem, and once the treatment is over, if the patient is very sure that the hearing part has improved, or the neck pain is gone, or the person is able to sort of see things better, so there is a direct cause and effect relationship, which probably it is very difficult at times for the social scientists to sort of establish that there is a cause and effect relationship in terms of the research we do and the changes that are expected. And as I also did mention, that there is also a kind of a decline of interaction between members of the larger research community. This has been very much highlighted, and there are not much interaction even with the same broad social science disciplines, and not to talk about interdisciplinary research institutions, where again we are sort of told that interdisciplinarity is something which needs to be now sort of emphasized open. So more on that I'll be taking now. Next, please. So the interdisciplinarity is a very, very important part of the current research trend. In fact, this is being, even in the new economic policy, this is now sort of emphasized. Even if I'm from a particular discipline, let's say economics, it's very, very important for me also to sort of know about larger societal issues. And it is not enough to know just what, how many, and when. So those kind of pieces of information, which are always useful, probably we need to know little more about the processes of change, sort of why certain event took place, and how it has happened, and what kind of intervention that could be made. And that's where actually it takes you beyond the realm of your own sort of discipline, which is very much limiting in many ways. For instance, there are several sort of issues you want to interpret, sort of issues of, let's say, democracy, issues of identity, issues of sort of, let's say, communal violence. There are several such issues, and there have been a lot of, for instance, if you want to understand resistance, sort of like popular resistance to development projects, for instance. So being an economist probably is not enough to understand and to make a sort of policy suggestion. So there is so interdisciplinarity is now given a lot of importance. For instance, like the very interesting work done by Professor Minakatan Behra, for instance, who is one of our research persons. So very, very interesting work he has done. What happened to the whole informal sector workers during and in the post-pandemic situation. So in that, if you read his articles, so it's much more than sort of he's telling things as an economist. In fact, there are several social and other institutional processes that he's referring to, sort of making a comment on the health system, for instance, making a comment on the caste system, for instance. So varieties of issues which are not necessarily part of, let's say, neoclassical economics, they also inform us to understand and comment on kind of apparently economic or a socio-economic process. Thank you. Amarendra, please next. So we have to necessarily what is called as trespass, like that was an expression by Alfred Hirschman, so who has been sort of talking about like trespassing is essential. So that you jump into other boundaries, like jump into the domains of others, or like other knowledge sort of spheres, while you sort of you do not lose your own identity as a student of economics, for instance, but then you also sort of explore, as Amarendra was mentioning, that when the students go to the field, so it is not just the problem alone, they also observe a lot of changes, a lot of phenomena which might sort of help them. So this sort of idea about trespassing, being open to other disciplines, like for instance, you want to explain so why there is, let's say, inter-regional disparities in growth. Like suppose you want to say that why so let's say certain states in India have remained in terms of, let's say, the per capita income, for instance, in this from the 60s, if you see till in fact till 2021 data, if you take the SDP data, the per capita SDP data, you'll find that some of the four states who remained at the bottom sometime in the 1960s, they have continued to remain there, and some states who sort of, let's say, the top four states have more or less remained at the top for all these decades. So there seems to be sort of like so to say this, or to say that the ranks have more or less remained stable, or there has been very little changes in the ranking, I think we are not making much comment in terms of the, if you want to make a comment on why these sort of ranks have remained stable, or why some of the poorer states have remained poor, and why some of the richer states have actually progressed on a continuous basis, even if they are part of the same federal setup. To understand that, I think you really have to sort of explore into like a lot of very interesting work, which is sort of found in the domain of, let's say, critical geography. So it's the geographers, not the physical geographers, it's the critical geographers, it's the historians, it's the sociologists, sort of who have done excellent work in terms of understanding what kind of political, social, historical processes that might have sort of influenced the manner in which uneven development has progressed between the states, and maybe that's what probably largely explains that why some states have remained relatively in the same position for all these decades of change. So being an economist, so you'll be making a much interesting and much more relevant point, and not by just talking about the ranks on the basis of per capita state domestic product, for instance, but also in terms of talking about how the federal polity works and how that has probably distorted certain kinds of development decisions that may have been made in the domain of economic development. Next, please. Yes. So with this little background, so let me sort of come to the writing part. So I'll be sort of focusing more on how you can write kind of a dissertation. I'm also aware that some of you have already got your PhD, so you are not young people who do not know anything about research you have been teaching. So I thought just to sort of refresh your ideas. So maybe there are sort of very broadly speaking. So why must we sort of write, or let's say why must we publish? I mean, only when you write something you are able to publish. So the something that it just has a like it's only for the to be shared with the peers, so like others who are also my let's say fellow scholars, fellow economists maybe. So it is for them. So I sort of publish an article, and some of my friends, my colleagues read this, and some may argue that this is more for the career requirement. So we don't have to really bother too much, so long as I have a certain number of publications and the API scores are with me. So that is one sort of more like a utilitarian or more of a functional approach to publishing. So that doesn't really take us very far. But if you are a sort of serious researcher, you are a sort of serious thinker, you are worried about certain socio-economic sort of questions, I think you may have to sort of delve into what you may call as the substantive sort of work, and sort of which, so your work might sort of feed into a fresh research by someone else. And that's precisely the purpose of this particular event, where we are sort of thinking as teachers, whatever you yourself may have achieved or done, or the capabilities that you have, so how much you can sort of transfer it to the younger generation, who might do much better work and maybe inspired by your works. And your work also helps the younger scholar to organize their own thoughts. Like very often the young scholars, like for instance, if you are doing your, let's say, an MA dissertation or a sort of PhD thesis, very often we are advised that we must sort of go to the library and look into the thesis already submitted and awarded, so that we get an idea. So your work is not just your work the moment it is put in the public domain. So as a teacher, as a researcher, as a thinker, you may not have done earth-shaking work, but then if it is done logically and sort of done with certain kinds of basic let's say, processes in place, it might inspire the student. So that is so it sort of it builds credibility to your own work. And but then it is always known that many people find it very difficult to sort of write so the writing difficulties are also not very much it is not a reflection of your personal weakness. It also reflects systemic negligence of negligence which has contributed to a certain kind of writing ability. And so whether it's a kind of the education system that we are in, which probably promotes rote learning, sort of like repetitive work, you sort of read something and you reproduce. So there is very little incentive for creative thinking, or what we also describe as long form writing. That is sort of writing shorter notes, let's say 1,000 to 2,000 words, for instance, like you are encouraged to write in a blog or in a newspaper, or make a little presentation in a seminar, for instance. So these are small little efforts. Because we do not do that, and the system doesn't sort of give any incentive for doing that, so long as we have an exam system and we sort of pass it, I think so that probably has contributed in the later years to our inability to come up with better sort of work. And then of course some of you also probably hinted at this, that the whole training at the early stages of college, and then the way the multiple choice based sort of evaluation process has been introduced, and there is this huge dependence on this. You would know better than me, all these guide books, the simplest way to pass your exams, but then they probably sort of kill your reading habit, sort of they kill sort of your interest to read beyond whatever is expected in the exam. So I think those are the real issues. So these may not be very interesting to younger people like you. You may be thinking that so why to bother about reading too much, but I think these are very useful, even to articulate even a good lecture in the class. I think you probably need to read better and sort of like contribute to critical thinking. And then of course there is an issue with the language itself, because we like it or not, much of the literature that we have and much of the communication that we have in this profession, irrespective of some of the things written in the vernacular language, so we have this difficulty with English. So maybe with more reading, sort of attempts to write shorter pieces, that might help us improve a bit. Next, please. So what we sort of then sort of come to like writing what? In fact, if you are talking about academic writing, which is the essence of sort of preparing a dissertation, as I did sort of mention that our writings very often, as some of you may have tried in the sort of refereed journals where we are supposed to publish because it's sort of peer reviewed. So very often they come back with comments or they are rejected because there are sort of essays or the write-ups are without arguments, without a structure, without evidence, and without a format. In fact, as Amarendra was mentioning, I happen to be the executive editor of the Odisha Economic Journal. The rejection rate, I mean, we get papers from all over the country, not just from Odisha. In fact, a large number of articles you get from almost all the states. And I'm very sorry to say that the rejection rate is very, very high. And many of these papers are written by professors or doctoral students with their respective professors, teachers. So it's very sad to see that we have to, in fact, to select a good paper from this huge number of submissions. It is a huge challenge because the papers definitely reflect poor reading and reflect that the writing skills are far below expectation. And so all that happens also partly because how we articulate. One is like sort of presenting your own work in small little seminars, events. So that helps. And also sort of participating in events where others are speaking. So there is, even if the topic is not relevant to you, maybe that also helps improving one's academic writing skills. Next, please. So again, it's difficult to define what exactly are the characteristics of academic writing, but then if you sort of want to make some kind of a distinction between journalistic writing, which are sort of largely in terms of the grammatical aspects or in terms of certain issues highlighted. So it is at times very difficult to distinguish between journalistic and academic writing, but then the academic writing probably is sort of more cohesive, and it also relates to varieties of other relevant events, information, analysis, existing information, and sort of like, and also it probably sort of entails a certain kind of linking between the initial or the initial arguments, initial proposition, and how you end the paper, which is very different from a journalistic piece, sort of which often sort of reports a particular incident or particular event, and sort of in itself is very valuable. But for a researcher, I think sort of the researcher, the research writing must sort of show that you have made a larger exploration, and yours is a much more balanced observation of a particular phenomenon. Next, please. Yes. Okay. Sorry. So what makes for a research dissertation? I mean, this could be, I'm not very sure how long at times the undergraduate or postgraduate dissertations are supposed to be, but if you are sort of presuming, let's say about 50 pages or so for younger sort of scholars who have little time to work on thesis, or even for relatively more focused researchers, whether in like in the MPhil or in PhD. So these are some of these sort of basics. I'm sure you all know that. So kind of you have to have some kind of an idea about like you have to have an abstract, but then I think that abstract, though it is sort of mentioned in the beginning, I think probably that comes at the end of the work. But then I think the most important part is the introduction and the context, like the basic sort of issues which have bothered you. So that needs to be sort of focused, as Amarendra was mentioning, that like in this particular sort of initiative, we are sort of focusing on, let's say, health or health at the rural level as one of the issues. So you could in fact choose whatever interests you, and that leads us So unless you contextualize, unless you sort of argue or articulate that why you are doing this piece of work, in what way it will be of help, or what questions have bothered you, or so, unless you sort of articulate that very strongly, it is not enough. Just because, let's say, a kind of a, let's say, a government program exists, so you think you just want to evaluate, and sort of you go to the particular official website and sort of like download the material already available, or should look at some particular report and sort of follow that up. I think that probably doesn't really help. So that's where I think this comment about research being sort of cloned, or research being repetitive, that comment comes because we have made very little effort as to why we are doing one more piece of work in an area in which there may have been much work done already. So the literature review, about which in fact, I'll spend a little more time after this on literature review. I think that's a crucial part. I'm not saying much on that. Essentially acknowledging work done by others before you started. And then to have research sort of objectives, hypotheses, which are essential sort of educated, informed guesses based on the kind of literature you have. So like you said, verify whether a certain proposition is sort of right or wrong, or that's whether that sort of holds good or not. For instance, sort of if you want to understand that whether charging more for water will lead to a decline in water use. So that actually makes for a hypothesis, and sort of you have to really see that whether that higher prices causes or leads to or reduces amounts of water use. So so it actually sort of like, but then that hypothesis that we are talking about, or the proposition that you use to test, that must actually come from a kind of a detailed review of literature. So that's something which is very useful. And about methods and methodology, I will not say very much because Professor Misra is there. I think I'm also, as I said, that I'm also hoping to learn from his very extensive research and his sort of experience in this field. I'll say a few things about sources of data quickly, and then, of course, if possible, not always necessary, but if my work relates to certain kinds of contributes to policy, for instance, its relevance to policy, that may be mentioned, and the conclusion essentially summarizes the points you make. So this sort of roughly or largely forms the essence of research, dissertation. And as I sort of did mention in the earlier slides, so Amarendra, how much time I have? I hope I am not crossing my time limit. Amarendra?
And there is enough time, no problem. Actually, we have session up to 1 o'clock.
Okay. Sorry. The next one, please. Next slide. Yeah, sorry, because I thought I should not be taking too much of time. What that brings us to, when we're talking about contextualizing or sort of raising a kind of a research question, for instance. So we are told that even for at the undergraduate level or at whatever the postgraduate level, so any dissertation should identify what we may sort of describe as a problematic with QUE. It is not TIC, as you can see. So this is actually kind of basically a French expression, and sort of is essentially. Let me give you a little example because I have some time. So let me give you a small example here. The thinking about an issue. So what could make for a kind of a research issue, for instance. This I have sort of often told in other research methodology presentations. Let me repeat it here for you. So let's sort of presume that you are on a bike or in a car or whatever. So you are held up at a traffic signal, sort of waiting for the traffic light to turn green so that you could move. So you have just few, let's say, moments or seconds with you. And so while you're waiting, a small girl comes up, obviously looks very disheveled, distressed, and sort of asks for a little money. Maybe she's hungry, she wants little money. And at that traffic junction, as a conscientious citizen, and while you also want to cross the traffic signal once it turns green. So during that short while, you take a call how to address, let's say, this issue of poverty. And sort of you take out maybe a 5 rupee or a 10 rupee coin, and somehow you give it to her, and then the traffic lights they change colors, and you move on, and you might have thought that you have sort of sorted out or addressed or solved or found a solution to a problem like poverty, because someone who was begging, you could give some money so that she could buy something. But then I think if you think beyond, so that's a problem you think you might have solved. So what makes it for a problematic? Like if you want to really sort of think through and sort of like you want to do a research on that, can a research sort of be done around this issue? So then you have to think that whether it is something very sort of like endemic to a particular community, like is it something which is affecting only, let's say, migrant families who come from distressed regions? Does it reflect that certain kinds of policies, development policies at the state level may have failed, and maybe certain kinds of institutional arrangements which probably has forced this girl to come out from her place and sort of like finding no income, neither she nor her family, and sort of she's sort of forced to beg. So would you think the same about your own daughter, for instance? So how would you have reacted that at that small age that your daughter, instead of going to the school or playing, would be begging at the traffic signal? So this calls for a larger sort of like reflection, not just sort of confined to that specific question of whether you have given a 10 rupee note or a 50 rupee note. I think so. As a researcher, I think, or as a social scientist, you need to sort of reflect and maybe relate it to the education policy, which sort of claims about universalization of primary education, for instance. So there is a particular instance where it might have failed. Whether begging is something which the state must allow as a solution for income generation. So these are the what happens to the whole informal sector, what happens to the habitations for people who have migrated, what happens to the migration laws, for instance. So several such issues probably come up, and sort of so that makes for what you may roughly call as the problematic. And so those are the disturbances in your mind which sort of leads you to think, okay, you might focus on just the question of begging as a kind of a thesis topic. And but the moment you do that, you realize that you are not the first person to have thought like this. There have been several work on every aspect, whether it's primary education, whether it's a question of begging, whether it's a question of sort of like housing for the urban poor. So there have been so much of work already done in India and elsewhere. So you may probably draw upon that. So these are actually sort of the beginnings of a kind of a thinking. It is not always that you just have to sort of copy from some other person who might have done a research on a particular subject, and you think that you sort of change the place. Okay, I have studied Ganjam, the sugarcane crisis in Ganjam, and sort of do it in Sambalpur. So that really doesn't quite help, though very often we sort of fall into that. So some kind of a thinking around an issue which might bother you, and we may have our own sort of ways of getting concerned about different kinds of events in the society. And then we probably need, as you sort of progress, maybe we have to sort of get information, what kind of data we have, and then I'll be telling a little bit about what kind of data at the very initial stages that we may sort of access, and then there are sort of how to analyze them, how to sort of ensure that the findings are validated. So those are statistical issues, which again Professor Mishra will probably address. And then it comes to like how we articulate the information that we have collected, the questions that bothered us, and sort of like how we organize our thoughts in a manner which will have some kind of implications for knowledge, for policy, and whether we are able to make any recommendations or not on that basis. And the most significant part of doing any dissertation, whether you publish, you don't publish, whether it's undergraduate level or postgraduate level, I think it is the whole question of your integrity. You as a social scientist, sort of how, like what kind of personal integrities you have, what kind of values you have, so far as your responsibility to the society is concerned. Next, please, Amarendra. Okay, so we have to make some beginning. It is always good to make some kind of what we may call as the pre-writing preparations, make short notes, and best is to share with peers or your teacher, and only then also to have informal discussions whether your ideas are well organized, whether it makes any sense, and so that leads to the actual writing, and of course the revisions and the publications might follow from that. Next, please. Okay, next, please, next. I think we'll go to the next one. I think some of this I have already mentioned. I think let's go evidence. So one of the key parts is this whole question of evidence, because that I think very often is questioned, and I think the social scientist or the economist contribution always depends on what kind of information you have used, and how well you have analyzed your evidence, and so making like loose statements which is not backed by, let's say, certain kinds of evidence, which could be both formal and informal. I'll be referring to that, but then that becomes extremely useful, so that you would not make any redundant statements, or you do not provide evidence which is not related to the research that you are doing. Next, please. So, and maybe at the end, you have to sum up your arguments. You may have to highlight the contribution that you are making to knowledge, and if there are any policy implications. Not always. I mean, the policy implication part is not essential for every research, but then it may not be a bad idea if your work relates to certain kinds of policy suggestions, for instance. And you can always identify your the limitations of your own work, and point out if there are issues in, let's say, certain kinds of data are not available, which would have been more useful, or certain questions which you could not answer because you did not have time, or you could not access certain sources. So that may be a kind of a good input for the next generation, or the next set of researchers who might be working on this. Next, please. Let's go to the next one. Yeah. So as I did mention that I wanted to spend a little time on the review of literature. So essentially, as I did mention that this is a formal acknowledgement of the existing work, existing thought, the thoughts and the views you may or may not agree with. But then, if such work has been done and put in the public domain, it is very important that we recognize them, and from that, we define what we call as the gap in the literature, and which becomes the source of your research, or which becomes the main point from where you start your research, whether in terms of like accessing newer sources of information, whether you think that a new methodology might be of help. So all your clarity comes from reading the existing work, finding out what kind of weaknesses are there, whether in terms of the strength of analysis, the strength of the sources used, and also the way certain conclusions have been drawn. So you may or may not agree with them, but then it is very important that we recognize that. Next, please. And so this is like the material that we are referring to. It could be theoretical, empirical, policy related, qualitative, anecdotal, or so you have to be in the beginning. I think it's very important that you have a kind of an open mind to kind of what kind of, very often people think that only certain kinds of published sources are sort of going to be used, and like the journals, books, and internet, for instance. But then there is also a whole world of what we will describe as gray literature, about which I'll be telling now. And so all this, while sort of we are referring to them, different sources, different kinds of work, which are sort of directly or even remotely related to our work, it is also very important, and not a very interesting suggestion that I'm going to make. Kindly do definitely make some small little notes on everything that you read. So this is not something which the current generation, who is very sort of happy to only surf the internet, may not like the idea of making physical notes, but very, very often that is the key to improving your writing skills, and also sort of it also keeps you engaged with what you write, what you articulate. So it is not enough that you download from a Google search and then you sort of cut and paste that. That probably doesn't help very much in terms of your building academic writing skills. And you have to be definitely be careful with what kind of sources you are using. So while you sort of like you are not going to sort of move away from your sort of basic focus on, let's say, economics, and like as I think Niharika has mentioned about development economics or institutional economics. So while you are not getting away from that, it's very important that you also ensure what kind of sort of sources you are referring to, how authentic or reliable they are, and also to understand in what context certain work has been done. And so that sort of influences the inferences that you might be drawing from those sort of material. So the review of literature is a very, many people think that it's a kind of a basic requirement, or somehow or other you sort of download some articles and you make a mention of a few papers. I think that's quite a mistaken view, and review of literature forms a very significant, strong part of making a kind of a research dissertation, for instance. Next, please. So in terms of the data that we are talking, so we have broadly, again, this is a domain where Professor Mishra will be talking more, but very sort of basic, because it's a mostly with economics background scholars. So we sort of do it with both mix, kind of a primary and secondary sources, and certain kinds of information, particularly in the secondary source domain. So these are sort of like based on certain kinds of predefined or determined parameters. Like, for instance, you are taking, let's say, annual survey of industries. So there are sort of, let's say, about 30 odd sort of variables, whether it's like net value added, for instance, employment, and sort of interest, what kind of input costs, so number of factories. So these are some of the standard sort of parameters or the variables on which you get data on a yearly basis. So at times, the secondary sources, so they are based on certain kinds of predefined or determined parameters that might help for certain kinds of comparison. And if you are sort of having information over time, so probably it sort of helps you sort of understanding certain trends, whether there have been major fluctuations. So this sort of the performance of a particular sector or a subsector or a certain initiative, state initiative, for instance. So these are probably at times captured by, if you are sort of looking into the larger or sort of kind of a database for different years. But the primary source, which again, as you are must be familiar, so these are actually sort of derived for a very different purpose. Like, these are from certain specific individuals, like whom you may have sampled for your own study purpose, or from a group, or from any other physical sources, which are very different from the secondary data sources, as I sort of mentioned at the top. So we very often you can always manage to work only with the secondary data. No one so stops you. But at times, to understand certain kinds of processes, maybe we need to really sort of, I want to understand what happens, how, let's say, the pandemic has affected the whole hunger profile of migrant workers, for instance, in an urban area. So if I want to do that, I will not get any sort of ready-made data over the years, as I was referring to work by Professor Minkatan Behra. Like, so he had to get down to the field, talk to individuals, talk to groups, but in a more systematic manner, with a structured questionnaire, with certain kinds of focus group discussions, and sort of like procuring information from variety of offices, from sort of NGOs. So all that helps him to sort of come up with a much better, a lucid, much more reliable sort of description or analysis of the phenomenon of, let's say, what happened to the workers, informal workers in big cities during the pandemic time. So it is very important that we sort of value both the secondary and the primary sources, and sort of how exactly or how fruitfully we use that, that's a matter of our own work and skill. Next, please. So there's, again, you must be familiar. I thought I'll give you a little bit of a sort of a sense of what kind of, because if there are many younger scholars who might be wondering, these are some of the standard sort of sources. This has not covered everything, as you can guess, but then some of the very basic information sources are, which are sort of like official secondary data sources, which have been coming on a periodic basis. And you have the population census, which is done normally every 10 years, but as you know that in 1941, because of the Second World War, and in 2021 for no war, so we do not have some census data for this too. But otherwise, it's a very rich source of information. Sort of, it tells us about issues in migration, issues in sex ratio, issues in occupation structures, sort of a variety of changes in rural and urban profiles. So all that sort of gives you a sense, and this may be useful irrespective of what kind of micro level study you might be doing. So this gives us a general sense, and you get data fairly at a disaggregated district, sub-district, at the village level data you get. You also very often get data on a large number of infrastructure, like for instance, you want to know the drinking water facilities in urban and rural areas, for instance. You want to know how many villages are sort of having electricity connection, for instance. So several such basic information on infrastructure, on issues in sort of like occupation structures, and the varieties of demographic details you would get from the age structure, whether sort of more like what we are talking about, the demographic dividend, for instance. So these are information which we have actually got from the population analysis, and particularly information relating to interstate migration. So you get from this. So these are some of the basic sort of trends, basic sort of like ideas you get from these sources. And similarly, you have this economic census. Unfortunately, this sort of like, this is very, I have not seen many people using economic census. I do not know why, because this actually is a kind of a originally seen as a precursor to the population census data. And economic census data, it's a census, so it sort of counts each and every, or supposed to count all the enterprises, whether they are small, big, formal, informal, home-based, or sort of based in a factory. So all that is sort of captured through the economic census. Then, as you can see, that initially these are sort of done 1 year before, like 1980, 1990. So these are sort of like supposed to be done before the population survey census. But then this is also a very, very useful data. So please do have a just, and for your knowledge, I'm sort of saying this. Then we have this very special socio-economic and caste census of 2011. And as I've sort of mentioned here, that so this is also a subject of much controversy, and we did not, or we do not have very detailed information on this, the distribution of this, but 1931 and then later time. So some of this kind of information so these are the larger national level data sources, the National Sample Survey Organization, as you know, and of late on sort of employment issues, you sort of find what is known as the periodic labor force survey, the PLFS data. So these are some of the sort of basic information or the data sources that we should be aware of. And there are several such, like All India Debt and Investment Survey, for instance, the National Account Statistics. And one of the best sources of many of these data, particularly relating to finance, to economic performances, to employment data. It's a variety of information you sort of find on a long-term basis at the Reserve Bank of India's website. So please do refer to that. And of course, I did not mention about the National Family Health Survey, for instance, which I think the fifth round is almost out. So all these sort of are very important. Even if we are not writing a dissertation on a particular subject, it's very important for us to recognize that's what are the larger trends at the economy level, at the interstate level, at the district level, and that might help sort of improve our arguments, even for a specific paper, for instance, or a specific dissertation. Then there are several such censuses which are done by the central government. So the agriculture related, they are typically quinquennial, that is every 5 years such information are available. So all these, whether there have been some which are dated and all that, very unfortunately, as you can see for the MSMEs, the last census was in 2006-7. We are in 2022. Then for census of handicrafts, which is a major sector. In fact, after agriculture, this is one of the major sectors, the artisan sector or the craft sector, about which we have just no information. Like if I want to do a study on rural industrialization focusing on this craft sector, so there is no so reliable government information excepting for the one which was done in 95, 96. So these are basic information we need to have sort of when we do our study. Then I do not want to get the full list, but then as you can sort of see, there are several sort of other periodic publications which you may please have a look at that. Like for instance, very interestingly, the information available in trade unions in India. So this kind of information probably is not much used. Crime in India, which also includes data on farmer suicides, for instance, causes of death, for instance. There are several such sources, and I think as younger scholars and as teachers, if you want to direct your students, it's also very important that we have some basic information about what kind of information is available at the secondary level, the state sort of brings out. And we also need to make comments on if there are sort of like gaps or certain kinds of deficiencies. So those comments also we can make. But I think it's very important that we have some sense about these are national and subnational level data sources for any research that we want to do in this field. Next, please. So, as economists, you might be wondering that why you must know things which are like beyond economics, if you like, but it's not the case. In fact, very often a lot of information, let's say how elections are done, and sort of like the human development surveys, particularly the two done by the NCAR. So these are some of the very, very interesting databases, sort of which are not exactly always published by the government on a periodic basis, but then these are very interesting data sources, databases, which gives us a lead into very many other, let's say, socio-economic parameters, which might help to sort of sharpen our understanding about certain processes, certain economic processes, and maybe you can sort of take help of that. There is this Institute for Studies in Industrial Development in Delhi. So they have I think it's a free access you can have in terms of varieties of data that is published in the Indian social science journals and a lot of newspaper clippings. In fact, they have been collecting for a long, long time. Extremely rich source. So please do. So when you wonder that, oh, you are based in Odisha, I'm in a rural area, so I'm not getting data and all that. So there are several ways by which you can actually access information which are often available free, or you might sort of route your sort of interest through some universities or institutions in Odisha. And there are several sources, as I did mention. The UN database, these are sort of, or the trade data, for instance, UN trade data, the commodity trade, export, import data, if you are interested in that. So several such data you in fact get as open sources. And so there is something called the corruption perception index and all. The COVID-19 data, again, that's sort of available on the dashboards. So there is, so probably it's important that at some leisure time, you also have a kind of a go at this kind of larger open source databases, which might also help you deciding on what topic you want to work on. So I would request the teachers, particularly younger teachers, to please also have some time for this, maybe ask the students to be a little familiar. And there are sort of several reports and several sort of like annual, or what you call kind of a periodic reports, which are sort of sector centric, like whether it's on like environment, the state of India's environment, for instance, or there used to be what is known as the alternative economic surveys, rural India perspectives, which are brought out by NABARD and IRMA, and India social development report. These are not actually annual sort of like systematic reports, but then these are sort of like maybe once or twice in, let's say, in 5 or 10 years time. So these sort of like are often sort of volumes in which the subject experts sort of they provide reviews of particular sectors. Suppose you want to know what happens to, let's say, let's say certain agriculture and sort of agricultural inputs or agricultural infrastructure in India over the years. Maybe you get sort of what happens to the minimum support price, for instance. So several such things, what happens to the inflation, for instance. So several such issues on which sort of you get very, very rich what happens to like how we have performed so far as drinking water and sanitation is concerned. So many of these sort of topics on which you get very rich articles written, so kind of a review articles, critically review articles written by experts. And so please do have it. And many of these reports are also available on the net free of cost. So please do have a go at these sources. Let me also go a little fast. So there is something I did mention in one of my earlier slides about gray literature. So this is a completely or quite a different world from that what we discussed so far. Like, for instance, we are talking about the data or the information or the reports coming from the formal organizations, including the government, central or the state government organizations, or certain kinds of known research institutions or civil society organizations. But there are several such material which are actually which are not part of that set of secondary literature. But then, so these are for particular purposes, for particular events. We have certain kinds of publications, but then at times they contain very interesting information. So we must not sort of sideline such information, whether they are unpublished reports, whether they are occasional papers, working papers of the institutions, conference proceedings, newspapers, articles, and even literary texts. Some of the sort of work by even literary figures, whether by Premchand, whether by Fakirmohan Senapati. So there have been several sort of people who are sort of arguing for, if you want to get a sense of how things were, like more from an historical perspective, you want to analyze the impact of debt, for instance, what happened to rural debt. So maybe you have to read Godan by Premchand. You want to sort of study about so what happened to girls' education, so you may have to read Fakirmohan Senapati. You want to know about what was the land system like previously, again you may have to go back to Fakirmohan Senapati. You want to know about the socio-economic relations, for instance. So there are several sort of very well-known literary work done by very, very significant thinkers. Whether they were economists or not really doesn't matter, but so long as they contribute to our understanding of how certain processes worked or did not work, I think we need to look into that. There is a lot of information available in the audio visual medium. So these are all sort of known as broadly as gray literature. You have to use some caution in sort of referring to them, but it is very important that whether they are called as mimeographed, processed, unpublished, but then it's very important that we have a look at this. Even in certain kinds of special meetings, certain documents are in fact shared only for the members. At times they contain very useful information. So what I'm trying to suggest is that as a social scientist, it's very important that we sort of keep our eyes open, and we must be receptive to varieties of sources and varieties of perspectives, and we can take our own personal view on that. And there is this open gray source, so that is also, there are several. In fact, this is just one example I've given. So there are several such sources where you have this kind of information which is collected and available free, for instance. Next, please. This is again, I will not take much time. So there is another major source which again the economists very often do not know, do not talk about, is this whole place called archives. Abhilekhagaro, jota apan Bhubaneswar dekhithibe. So it's there in different states. There is a central archives as well. So they contain a lot of information about the past times, the socio-economic development decisions, when they have taken a lot of records which are not available in the public domain. So they are usually, typically it's a kind of a, let's say about a 30 year with a 30-year gap, you may find information, a lot of newspapers, a lot of magazines which are no longer in public sort of domain. You may find them. And so these have been very, very interesting sources. But this is also for those who want to have some kind of a historical perspective. So this is all about the older data. So please, if you have time, you look at that. And there are other sort of like gray literature sources which we do not again talk about. So these are actually this Lok Sabha and Rajya Sabha debates. So several development decisions that are being taken, the policies which have come out. So they are preceded by a lot of discussions at the parliament. And these are, in fact, this is a publication. The Lok Sabha debates and Rajya Sabha debates, they are actually periodic publications, and which you must access to understand. For instance, like in my sort of PhD work, I have used some of this to understand that why, despite having a huge, let's say, base of mineral resources, particularly iron ore, manganese, and coal and water, in Odisha, why we did not quite sort of take off as a kind of, let's say, industrialized state or a progressive or an advanced state, why we remained so-called economically backward. So, like, to understand that, it's very important that I also see what kind of, like, in a federal setup, what kind of development decisions have been taken, whether there was a certain political angle to the development, to the economic development decisions, whether the investments which were to come from the center, for instance, let's say the central investment subsidy, or certain kinds of federal transfer of cash, for instance, whether these were sort of based on purely economic considerations, or whether there are other processes which are in place. To understand that, I, in fact, even for very recent decisions, including GST, for instance, you want to know, so how this GST in fact came into being, and what were sort of the agreements, disagreements around that. To know that, it is very important that you sort of refer to some of these sources, and that gives you very interesting ideas, a lot of new material, a lot of data which is generally not, you want to understand what happened to the farmer suicides. So to know about the discourse that went behind that, it's very important that we access some of these sources. The All India Reporter is another source of lot of legal disputes you'll find in many of the lawyers sort of offices. You find those big volumes, but now these are available on net. So why I'm sort of mentioning this, it's very important that we sort of widen our sort of idea about what kind of sources we can access. Please, next, please. These are again sort of very unusual private records. So the Konika Raja, for instance, Tankara private library, there's a lot of material on what happened to the forest resources, the exploitation of forest resources and minerals during the British time, for instance. Railway line, the railway lines were laid during the, let's say, the 1890s to 1910, 1920s. Much of the major railway lines were laid. So lot of resources, natural resources, particularly wood and coal, so they were taken from these regions, which were mostly were part of the princely states. So to understand that, so I have to really see what kind of, even about diseases, for instance, what kind of diseases, malaria, for instance, as a disease, how it affected the economic activities of people, sort of how it led to a sort of an increase in poverty, for instance. So several such information you probably find in many of these private records. In fact, for the sake of time, let me just give you a very quick one small example, maybe. Like we had two doctoral dissertations done at the JNU. These are done by two very prominent scholars, Professor Dr. Mihir Shah and Dr. T.K. Sundari. So what they did, in fact, they were sort of trying to understand what happened to the agricultural laborers, their income, their sort of poverty levels. So they were sort of doing a study on this, sort of focusing on a particular district called Chingalpet in Tamil Nadu. And what they did, so they, as part of their field service, as Amarendra was mentioning, going to villages, households, and so they found that for certain kinds of, let's say, socially disadvantaged groups who did not own any land for generations, so they found a lot of very interesting records in their house, and which were essentially some at least 200-year-old sort of like documents which are written by hand, and sort of essentially suggested that these were actually sort of documents prepared by whoever the local kings or the local chieftains for which they were working. That it says that in the keeping sun, the moon, the stars as witness, the following family of Mr. and Mrs. So and so will never have the right to own land as property. So meaning thereby, so it's a kind of a social process by which, without any legalities involved in this, the social process sort of ensured that if you belong to a certain sort of caste, which is sort of broadly known as the Paraya community, for instance, so the untouchables, if you like. So there are certain kinds of sort of social groups who were sort of kept outside the purview of sort of owning land for generations, because a certain document was sort of like signed, or certain document was prepared by the chieftain. So to understand these processes at work historically, and how they might have affected the present generation, so the disadvantages, social and economic disadvantages of certain communities, it's very important to get information from this. So I'm not taking more time on this. Amarendra, please, next. Then, of course, this is your playground, not mine. So this is the digital world, and sort of you are all smart, familiar, etc., etc. I have just one or two small points to make, and the information flow is so much that you have these blogs, personal logs, and all. But you may read them, but I think it's probably not very prudent to use them as references in your dissertation, and certainly not use or quote the Wikipedia, which is a resource which could be edited by someone. So please, you can, of course, you can read that, and then a lot of information of the let's say a kind of what is known as the digitization sort of process. So you find a lot of documents, books, reports, which are available in the digitized form, which you can probably access. And that leads to the next small point again. I'll end it very quickly now. The plagiarism, that is sort of stealing, literally stealing, or sort of like acting as someone who pretends that the work has been done by her or him, but essentially it's someone else's work. This is a very serious offense. There are new softwares which sort of can catch you, and it can also, the new softwares also can catch you even if you have sort of very smartly reworded some parts or some sort of sections of a quotation that you are not sort of acknowledging. So it is very, very serious matter. It might actually, it might be a legal issue. It might prevent you from sort of submitting your research document. So please be careful when you sort of use someone else's idea, someone else's material. Please definitely make a reference to that. There is no limit as such, but then I have done some small little survey on this, and I found that about 40 words maybe is an acceptable limit. So beyond that, please don't quote long paragraphs, even if you are citing the original source. Next, please. So you could probably avoid, like as I did mention in the very beginning, not a very pleasant thing I mentioned about making small notes of what you read. So please do make small notes, and so those practices will help you like to get the essence of what the original author or authors are saying. And probably you could you mention the source, but then you use your language and your way of whatever you have understood, so that might help. And of course, as I said, there are several websites which can catch you in the wrong foot, so you could avoid that actually. Next, please. Let's go to next. So there are some ways by which you need to have a consistent referencing style. There are sort of several different styles, like very commonly used site in many of the social science journals. That is the APA style is what is usually followed. But then there are several other, as I have mentioned. This you get the latest versions you get in the website. So the one small thing about this, despite the differences in styles, is that whatever style you are sort of following for referencing, you please sort of maintain consistency, and so do not miss out on, let's say, number of pages, the year of publication, and do not forget to have those sort of the titles of the volume, whether if it is a report, its title, whether it's a journal article, then the journal's title, if it's a book, the book's title, etc. So make sure that they are in italics, and sort of you mention all the information about the sources. And if you are sort of using a kind of an online source, as you definitely know, so please always mention the full URL, and please provide the last date of access, because very often these websites, they change, the information content may not be available after a later search. So it's very important that you mention the full URL and also the last date of your access. So these are very, very essential. Next, please. So this is almost bringing towards the end of it. Like this is kind of a different stages of literature survey. So as I very quickly, like all that you study, have an open mind, read all kinds of literature, formal, informal, gray, whatever. But then you review them, interpret them, make small notes, make critiques, you agree, you disagree, get clues from that, and that brings you to like from where you need to start your own work, or we sort of like call it as the point of departure. So you articulate the gaps that you found in the literature. That also helps you contextualize the introduction that we were talking about in the beginning. That sort of helps, and also that gaps also help you to come up with newer methodologies, newer approaches, and then you sort of justify, or sort of you articulate your problematic, and then you sort of contextualize your own case as to why and how you are going to undertake your work. Next, please. I think I will now go a little, these are last one or two. So as we are sort of coming to an end of this, so small little things I did mention that, so the how we articulate, meaning what kind of expressions or language or grammar or whatever you call it, because rightly, wrongly, we like it or not, we have to do most of these things in English so far. But there are some other countries, like for instance Italy, for instance Spain, for instance France, for instance, several countries now, they are sort of insisting that they will not like to publish their research in English language, and if you want to understand them or understand their research, you better learn their language. I mean, there is a kind of a discourse going on whether the English is the dominant sort of language now. But so far as we have not sorted that out, let's also accept that this is not a language of our own sort of facility. So, but then it is better to avoid jargons. There is nothing to impress the other the reader by using expressions which you are not very sure about, including the technical terms. And it is better to be precise, better to be clear, simple, rather than using too many unnecessary explanations. And also in the articulation, very often we must avoid a lot of very known, like for instance, I'll not take the names of individuals, but like I received some article on the health services available in Odisha, for instance. So then one paragraph in the beginning goes on saying, oh, health is wealth, and health is the ultimate resource for human progress. And so all these things we don't have to say, or to say that water is life, so that's why drinking water has to be given priority. So we should actually avoid redundant known statements, because those are so very commonly known, so you don't have to restate the obvious. Next, please. I think so. I think this is the last slide, I guess. So, with all that you do as a social scientist or someone who's preparing a dissertation, so it is very, very important that we definitely sort of get it read by another scholar or scholars who may be younger, older, a teacher or a peer, or someone who is not also directly from your field. But if you think that someone else or some others might give you better comments, they will have kind of a newer ideas. They may be objective, they may criticize, or they may not like your writing, but still they may contribute to improving your dissertation. So I think Amaranda, there is no further slide that is over. So with that little sort of point about finally getting it approved, getting it read by others, so we always ensure that our dissertation is of some quality which the younger generation might learn from. Thank you so very much. I took a lot of time. I'm so sorry.
No, thank you so much. One minute. Okay, thank you so much, sir. No. Okay, thank you so much, sir, for the very comprehensive presentation on how to prepare a dissertation and each component, starting from the structure of the dissertation to doing review of literature, collecting data, and editing and publishing it. So thank you so much. Govinda, do you want to have a question or a comment? You have raised your hand.
Sir. Hello.
Yes, please go ahead. Yes.
Yes, sir. Heart-touching presentation, sir. It was nicely informative. I don't have any question, but I have some suggestions to our organization, sir. Most of the yes, sir. Most of the teachers who are teaching, like in the rural areas, or we don't have any access to standard journals, sir. So in places like IITs, Niger, JNU, and other places, they have remote access, and people are accessing through this. So can we develop a network like that, at least for the live members of our organization, so that we can access through that remote access? This is my suggestion, sir.
Amarendra, can I say something here?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Please go ahead.
It is actually good that Govind asked this question. I just forgetting. I think just 1 or 2 days back, someone shared a particular message exactly addressing this issue that Govind is referring to. I think there is going to be free access to all social science on whatever science journals. I think it's a central government initiative. I do not know what it is called. One nation, one source of reference or something. I forgot that. So that has been now been widely recognized. In fact, but that remains a big issue. I very much agree with Govind that that there is a definite skewness in terms of access to literature. But it is quite possible that, like for instance, I do not know, maybe in NCDS, in Utkal University, or maybe some of the private universities, or even Niger, IIT, I think it should be possible to like access specific articles or whatever if you sort of place a request. Actually in Ahmedabad, where I'm right now based, very often, like any articles we want to get which is not there in the library, so we have some kind of inter-library, what you call, not a loan, actually inter-library network is there, which includes even institutes like Indira Gandhi Institute. So what you get, like the librarian, in fact, contacts some of these larger institutions who are better funded and have access to these materials. So very often we access through that. But I'm sure that the InflibNet is making some efforts. Very soon, I think it should be available to all. That's what we are hoping.
Thank you, sir.
Okay. Dr. Madhumita, would you like to say something? You have raised your hand.
Good afternoon, sir. I have simply two questions. Uh, Basically, I need some clarification. Sir, first is there a difference between conceptual framework and a theoretical framework? And suppose, particularly, we are interested in guiding undergraduate students, which should we ask them to focus more? Should it be like theoretical or conceptual? And my second clarification, which I need, is suppose we want to access this private libraries like the Kanika library, which you talked about. What is the procedure of getting those
Membership.
maybe things from there? Can we directly approach them, or what's the process?
To your first question, actually, the whether in fact there is a lot of discourse going on. What is the difference between theoretical framework and conceptual framework? I can sort of tell you this much, that the theoretical framework, it provides a kind of a general, broader ideas within which the study belongs. But in a conceptual framework, probably it sort of refers to a kind of a narrower idea which the researcher is using. So it is useful to have a theoretical framework to understand larger processes which are, let's say, more universal in nature. But the conceptual framework probably slightly differs from that and sort of focuses more on, let's say, let me give you a very quick example. For instance, like suppose you want to understand the, let's say, the agrarian relations and how they affect agricultural productivity, for instance. So if you take the theoretical literature, so I may sort of take you to, let's say, the mode of production debate. But then within that, if I want to sort of do a particular study, let's say in a Odisha village, so I may have to bring in the concept of caste. So the caste as a kind of a conceptual category is not part of the larger global discourse on the theory of agrarian relations. So in fact, it is mostly sort of focusing on the class dimension. So if you are introducing the way the caste of a farmer is affecting his or her access to land, etc., etc., so that makes for a little difference in that. The other thing is the theoretical framework. So that is sort of based on certain kinds of existing theories, in fact, and it has been sort of already validated. So that makes it for a, as I use the word, universal sort of acceptance or universal applicability. But then the conceptual framework is sort of more which are actually based on the variables on which you get information for your own work. So there is always this sort of slight, very thin difference between all that has been sort of validated, largely applicable at the universal level, and how your study slightly sort of whether it conforms to that, or whether there are some newer variables, newer sort of nuances which make it slightly different. So those are probably my rough responses. And regarding the private libraries, they all change. And if you are going to the archives, so like you can access a large number of this material, including that you find in some of these princely states collection that you may find in the archives itself. Otherwise, I think you have to access. You have to really approach the Kanika king family to access some of this material. There are several sources like people have used, like for the church records, for instance, for demographic study. So they have sort of used those kind of information, and these are not always. There is no single way by which you can access that information.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you so much, sir. So, Jyoti sir, would you like to say something?
Yes, I would like to add on to what Professor Keshav sir has already spoken at length. I would love to say that he spoke about the Chabila Varnabodha of research methodology. Okay, all right. Sir, to be very frank, and I would like to share it with my fellow economists, elders, and my juniors as well. See, right after this new education policy has come out, where they have said that you can go for a PhD after BA, so the significance of this workshop becomes of utmost significance. Because after BA, man, Ajira Sano Pila BA, say left journey, right journey, he jumps into the PhD program. That means he's taking a quantum jump into a world of uncertainty. And it is fellow researchers and economists like you and I who are supposed to hold their hand along with the teachers, prospective teachers. Now we need to pull our socks. First, I would like to say, Professor Keshav sir, as an addendum to your presentation, we are generally shy to step out of our comfort zone. Like, for example, the chat box that you see, Dr. Amarendra, in this presentation, in this forum, everyone is saying that, sir, my area of interest is micro, macro, public finance, institutional, agriculture, labor. That means they are all very safe, comfortable within the prescribed syllabus. We have to go outside the boundaries. If we are talking of globalization, we have to globalize as far as the knowledge industry is also concerned. We have to step out of the field. Well, we need to have an interdisciplinary approach, which unfortunately none are having. For example, there is a new field called anthropoeconomics. It is a combination of anthropology and economics. Heredity economics, cellular economics, molecular economics. समस्त कहे molecular, this is biology. We are IA, BA, MA, ame kaun karu? No, absolutely not. If we are studying why Dr. Amarendra Das is a spendthrift and why Dr. Keshav Das with due regards is a miser, there is a cellular aspect ascribed to that. There is a neurotic aspect. There is a family upbringing. There is a genes, our body genes, rokta, DNA, RNA, that is ascribed to that. Another classical mindset that we guides or mentors in Odisha we have is that thesis ta bapa 180 page ro kar diyo. Now, what a smart candidate like me is doing, I'm inflating the number of my pages in my thesis by actually inflating the review of literature portion or the bibliography portion. Now, as a prospective guide, supervisor, or mentor, we should know the difference between bibliography, references, and literature cited. There was a beautiful question by Ms. Madhumita Das that theoretical kariya na conceptual kariya. Remember, Dr. Madhumita Das, a good conceptual paper is worth its weight in gold. Everybody says data aniba, field study kariya, project kariya, bahar ko jiva, absolutely not required. When Paul Samuelson wrote his master treatise, he never went to the field. Sitting on your dining table or your study table, you can conceptualize a beautiful paper by injecting the 7 W's that Professor Keshav sir has spoken. Why, what, when, where, how, who, whom. A beautiful conceptual paper, even if it is 3 A4 size sheets, is worth a competitive paper in the economic forum. Now, if you see somebody's LinkedIn or Facebook, 300 friends, 500 friends, all rubbish. If you're serious about your business of academics, you should network with people of your field. Broad field economics, narrow field your area of interest. I'll give you a small smart reply. We are shy to present papers in all available opportunities. How conferences to hochi kiye pachauchi? No. Recently, there was a conference and they told me present your paper, Dr. Amarendra, in 6 minutes. I said I withdraw my paper.
Yes, sir. If you don't mind, see, actually we have kept
Okay,
1
I'm
hour.
finishing. I'm finishing.
Listen.
Okay.
Actually, we have kept 1 hour at the end for open discussion. Actually, there is a lunch break from 1 to 2. You can have actually full discussion during that last one. Is that okay, sir?
It is from 5 to 6?
5 to 6, yes, sir. Yes.
Give me exactly 7 minutes to speak at that time forum.
Sure.
Okay.
Thank
fine.
you so much, sir. Thank you. Yeah. Okay. So thank you, everyone. Now we shall break for lunch, and like all the questions like Govind has raised and others have raised, I think we can discuss all that during that 5 to 6 open discussion. So let us break for lunch, and then we'll come back at 2 o'clock. Thank you so much. Thank you. Yeah, okay.